So the woman we are honored to be speaking to today is one of the greatest engineers, mixers, producers who has completely helped define the sound of heavy rock in the last generation. The records you worked on with System of a Down and Tool and Slayer and just a slew of amazing records, not just hits, but great, timeless records that people will listen to for a lifetime. This is the woman who is behind the boards and mixing and producing all that stuff. And I can't tell you how honored and thrilled and a little starstruck I am to be here with Ms. Sylvia Massy.
Well, thank you very much. It's really great to be back. And, it's a strange time of year to be here for this event, but we're all getting our land legs back, but man, it's great.
So over the years, you've, like I said, you've helped kind of define the sound of rock, and you've definitely been an icon in this industry. But for somebody who's like really gets rock, you're like the go-to person for the person who really understands rock and roll. When did you fall in love with rock and roll?
I think when I was starting out, I was really into my own band, of course, and I found that because I grew up in a household where my father was building his stereo and everything, it was a natural thing for me to get into the technical side of it, and I would always wind up being the person who could set up the mics and make a simple recording in the rehearsal room. And then that translated into me getting into a starting position at a recording studio and starting to bring musicians in, and their music seemed to be coming out better than my own personal music, so I just continued with that and had a lot of success with it. Just by, I didn't go to school, but I just learned how to kind of guerrilla record as I was going.
Yeah. It's funny, I was looking through some of your earliest credits, and there's some names on there that are very famous to Bay Area people, maybe not so much to other people, like Tuxedo Moon. Anybody big Tuxedo Moon?
Right, probably no one knows.
Beatniks?
Yeah, Beatniks, wow.
Yeah. Exodus, classic Bay Area metal band. So obviously you have some connection to the Bay Area. How did your connection coming up in the Bay Area inform your career?
It was an interesting time. There was great music in the Bay Area, and I was working at a studio called Bear West and just getting used to doing sessions for pay. And the opportunity came to work on a project with a band called the Sea Hags. Sea Hags, I love this band. I would go out and see them play live. So I had the opportunity to do a record, co-producing it with Kirk Hammett from Metallica, who was a Bay Area guy, and he was really young. He had just joined Metallica at the time. And we did this record, and it did so well independently that they got picked up by a major label. And I thought, here's my chance. Here, I'm in San Francisco, but I'll be able to do a major label project because I did the demo, basically.
Right.
That's not how it worked. The job went to Mike Klink.
Oh.
He got my gig, man. And then I was kind of invigorated to move to LA. That's when I moved, and that's when things really changed. Of course, I moved to LA. Nothing really happened for several years, and it was just getting into assisting and working on projects at Larrabee. That's when I really started to connect. But I always had this thing with the punk rock people that I used to work with in the San Francisco studios. So I kept a connection with all those people.
Do you think it's essential to live in LA to make it on the recording side as a producer, mixer, engineer?
I would have to say that you almost have to do some time in LA, and give it 2 years, and you'll know. If you go to LA and you're breaking in or trying to get started, don't just give it 6 months, because that's not enough time. You can give yourself 2 years to fail and then get back up. and then get into the really good position. You'll find at 2 years, and that's exactly what happened. I moved to LA, I struggled, I went from gig to gig, and then all of a sudden got this job at Larrabee that led me into working with Prince and Rick Rubin, which connected. It was a strange connection because Rick also wanted to work with the Sea Hags too. So we had that connection, and that led to the Tool and all the other things that came later.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up on that because you worked on Diamonds and Pearls, right?
Yeah, on the Prince Diamonds and Pearls.
Well, like I get chills thinking about that.
When I think about it, I get chills because it was me and Prince in the studio. Usually, he would book 5 rooms at the same time. Then he would bounce between rooms, and I'd be in a room ready to record overdubs.
Yeah.
And I'd have every guitar, every pedal and all the guitars I thought he would want to use, including a Strat and a Tele, and then he would walk in and grab something, and I'd be recording. It was terrifying.
Yeah, I've heard. I mean, everybody says he's scary to work for.
It was amazing, though. He's dancing, he's playing solos, he's spinning, he's dancing, and he plays better than anyone.
Yeah. So that was around the same time you were working on Danzig 2, Lucifuge. Those are pretty big, very different records, but those are both incredible sounding records. So those are still records that like people take into studios to test the monitors.
I have to say that's a Rick Rubin thing because he created this really dry, no room, in your face kind of thing with barely any reverb on the vocals or effects. Just true raw recording. So I got to be the person to record with him producing, and I learned so much from Rick about keeping that raw energy, and not messing around with that.
It's such a wide range of recording styles between those two. I mean, I can't think of any two artists that would have such a different sound. So, do you find that was a big part of your education, being able to navigate doing rock and roll that sounds like a punch in your face versus Diamonds and Pearls, which is like one of the most lush, like most beautiful sounding recordings that Prince ever made, really?
Well, it's interesting that you would think that because when you look at how he recorded, a lot of his recordings were just crushed into the analog tape. So he was also in your face. The Prince stuff has also got that kind of urgency.
Yeah.
And so there is some similarities to those things, incredibly, but seemingly vastly different animals.
Yeah. Just as an aside, who's scarier in real life, Glenn Danzig or Prince?
Oh boy, they're coming from different parts of heaven or hell.
I won't make you commit.
Yeah.
So moving on to early 90s, I guess 92, when you worked as a producer mix engineer on the first Tool EP, and then Opiate, which is the first Tool record, which is a record that completely changed heavy rock. And also largely in vocal style, because up until then, if you think about the period behind that, like the glam rock, kind of goofy ass, sorry, I shouldn't, some of these people might be in the room, so no offense, but if you think of the glam rock Sunset Strip kind of rock and roll sound, and then like and then the shrill, who can sing the highest, which was a thing in metal for a while, and then Tool comes around and Maynard James Keenan has a voice that is absolutely singular. How did you, how shocking was it to hear something like that, and how did you approach, producing a guy with a vocal that was so different in a band that had such a different sound?
Well, yeah, he has a complete unique style, and in fact, when he sings on stage, that's I've heard him scream and sing in ways that were just like, terrifyingly awesome. So to get him in the studio and to have that kind of energy, he has no audience to play off of. So I would try to make it as comfortable as possible. The big trick, it was like setting up mics and setting him up so he could lean over, because he would sing like this, with his face pointing to the floor. So I would set up mics like that, tube mics, and just don't touch the mic, Pretty soon it's obvious that he really just needed something to grab onto.
Right.
So we chose an AKG C1000 microphone condenser, and wrapped a bunch of foam on it, and that was the vocal mic that we used for those records. Yeah, I think handheld when you're even in the studio, you know, a handheld mic will give you a much better performance for certain singers.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like what was going to be my biggest question for you is how do you inspire confidence in a singer?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're not married to having to do it one way. Like you'll accommodate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, you know, singers don't always have good days,
Yeah.
so you have to, you know, work with them to get the performance. Or be rough, you know, tough love also works, you know, if the singer's just not hitting it and they say that they can't do it any better and you know they can, then you keep pushing. I'll push. And I also will make a singer do ridiculous things to get their head out of their ass.
Yeah.
You know, just like stand on a chair, okay, now sing. And there's like, they're balancing, they're trying to keep from falling down. So they're suddenly not thinking about their poor throat, you know?
Right.
So, but that just gets themselves out of their head. Okay. And then they can do a proper performance or something more genuine.
Did you learn this technique or is this just something that like your own good nature led you to?
Well, you know, I didn't get necessarily any training, but I did grow up in a household where my mother was an opera singer and would rehearse, and so I would have I would hear the singing in the house all the time. You know, in fact, I think she held me as a baby and would work on her stomach muscles with me as a baby.
Oh.
You know, so it just seems a natural thing for me to be doing this and helping other singers to work on their style. Yeah. With
your mom being a singer, obviously it sounds like you had lifelong empathy for what it means to be a singer. I mean, it's like it's tough on your voice. It takes bravery, right? And like you're exposing yourself so much more in vocals than you are with any other instrument. I think really because it's you, it's your person. You know?
Yeah.
When you're tracking with a vocalist, are you looking more for a pitch perfect performance, like a technical performance? Or if you have to pick between that and like that perfect, like note breaking, that, you know, like what do you go for? How perfect are you looking for?
I don't want perfect.
Right.
Yeah, no, because it's not genuine, it's not real. I mean, I can manipulate the tracks to do whatever I want them to do, but if I can get a performance that is the essence that tells the story of the lyric, is convincing, then those little pitchy things, you know, I can even move words, I can replace words, I can change consonants, you know, I can clean up dirt. It's not a problem. All I want is a real, honest, raw, you know, well, that's in particular styles of music, that's the most important thing.
Right. And you really are listening to lyrics as well, then, huh?
I want to know what the story was, what the writer was thinking when he wrote those lyrics. Like, convince me that this really happened, you know, and how you feel about it. And then that's the part of music that I think we all love because it transmits the emotion. And when it's successful, it's really fantastic. And that's what I'm looking for, is that communication.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. You are one of the few people in this business. I mean, a lot of people have gone engineering, mixing, producing, but not done it on a masterful level. And you also do it with records where you're doing all three yourself.
Yes, that is very hard.
It seems
Isn't
hard.
it?
Yeah.
But sometimes if you don't do it yourself, you're not going to get the result that you want. You know,
right.
And if you really want to be careful about it, there's ways that as an engineer you can record so that the producer or the mixer or the mastering engineer can't fuck it up. You know,
right.
It's like, well, maybe the mastering engineer can, but you know, if you record the vocal layering and then create stems and then that's what you give to the mixing engineer, then they are locked into a certain sound. So there's ways you can manipulate. Mixing is very hard, and I've been doing mostly mixing lately.
Yeah.
And we set up an Atmos room, so we've got 9.1.4.
Wow.
And it's fantastic mixing for the Apple Spatial and, the spatial platforms.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Did you ever see that coming? Did you think 9.1 sound was coming to people's homes?
I still am hoping that it all works out. I'm most interested in like auto sound for having an immersive experience in your auto. Oh boy, and home systems, that's still being developed. But the headphone experience with immersive
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's great.
When you start to sit down and mix a vocal, where do you start? What's the first thing you do?
Well, if it's already been completely polished and put together, then the rest of the track, I want to put that in pretty close to the end of the mix, and then tuck it in. It depends on the music, but I want it to blend in usually with the front wall kind of feel. And I'll take I'll usually take the raw track and put a little compression on it and add delay and reverb and a stereo simulator, which I use in the front wall. We're still learning about how to treat the vocals in an immersive situation, and that's changing because there's less compression on the end of the immersive mixing. But if someone sends me files that are unprepared, I'll go through it and I'll make sure that they're detailed. Yeah, and that will be with editing. It'll be with tuning. It'll be with compression, and whatever it needs, just to bring the point across in the lyric.
I love how thoughtful you are about the songwriting and it's respectful of the artist too.
Yeah.
So how are you using AutoTune in your process? I mean, obviously you're not working with a lot of bands where people can't sing. You're some of the best singers of all time. How do you work it into your workflow?
Well, you think that they're the best singers of all time, don't you? Could be. And Terry's just done a lot of help in that area.
Secret's out.
Yeah, the secret sauce. But yeah, the initial use of AutoTune, and it is still a miracle, is to keep that essence of performance, like a live performance. It's not going to be perfect. I want all the spitting, and I want all the the growls and the breaths and all that. Give it all, and I'll manipulate it in the way that I want to. I'll even change the melody if it comes to that. This is such a powerful tool, especially in layering vocals, because oftentimes you'll get a singer that, they have ideas about parts, but they don't exactly hit the interval that would be the best.
Right.
So I take it and I'll manipulate it and I'll change to make those slabs really locked in,
Yeah.
And it's a fun writing tool too, the AutoTune in particular with the writing new music, writing parts for mixes. I might add my own vocals into a mix. Towards the end, I'll add some backing vocals, but my voice is not exactly like super great, so I lean heavy on the correction, so that I can make these fast slabs of ahs, and they're just amazing. It depends on how you use the software, though, whether or not you want to make it sound artificial or make it sound subtle with subtle changes. But that's each individual person has to make those decisions.
Cool. I think we are at time. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
It's been wonderful.
It has been wonderful.
It has been great. If there's questions or anything, I'd be glad to take a couple questions, but I don't know. How is everyone? Yes.
Hi. Real pleasure meeting you.
Thank you.
This is my first time around. My friend and artist extraordinaire.
Hi, everybody. My name's Alonzo from Chicago. I'm a music publisher. I've been in the industry for 7 years. I started with NASCAR. My question is, I heard you when you said move to LA for 2 years, right? What if we can't move to LA? What if, sorry.
Well, it might be better to just develop relationships in your region. It seems like it is harder when you're at a remote location for opportunities to come up, because you maybe you know someone in LA that can help, or someone or someone has a gig and they're like, can you be here next week? Yeah. That's the thing, is that they may be looking at 10 people. There may be 10 individuals that they're interested in working with, but it'll be the one that's down the street, and that's all there is to it,
So out of all the experience, one of my favorite bands growing up was System of a Down.
Oh.
How was your experience?
Oh, that's a really special band. Real people, not posing in any way. This is true family people. I love them so much, and their energy is just it's electric. It's fantastic to see in the studio. I've been so lucky and blessed to have seen that.
Great. Do you have, oh, shoot. Here's my sound guy. All right. Does anybody else have any questions? Going once?
I got a question. Any more advice for like a hobbyist to make that transition to actually get into it?
Yeah, if you're really interested in getting into recording and making a go of it as a career, I would suggest starting out, if you have your own recording rig at home, to invite musicians to come in, every kind of musician, do projects, and not just like one artist and 20 songs by one artist, or your own music. Please, you can do your own music, but also do other people's music if you want to get a foothold as a producer. I think that in the type of work I do, do as many different projects. Diversify. You'll find the one that you work in the best. You develop relationships with as many people as possible. You get them in the studio with you. You show them that you're a good hang, because that's like one of the big things, is you got to be a good hang. And then you just build a clientele that way. I mean, honestly, that's what I did. I still visit with people that I started out with way in the 80s,
Yeah.
These relationships, they actually never cease. I mean, I see people here every year that I've known for a long time.
The good Hank thing is a critical piece of information you just let everybody know. If you want to be in the art studio with an artist for 8 to 10 hours a day, they have to want to be in there with you. Yeah. Right? Like, you have to be good company.
Yeah, good company. I don't know what that means. Sometimes if you're a good cook and you bring some mac and cheese one day, it's just like, that does it for everybody. You're the hero. But just knowing your stuff, doing a good job trying, but not getting in the way. At least to start, but do as much as you can. And thanks, and good luck.
All right, one last question, then we're wrapping up.
I have unconventional recording techniques, and I love it because I learned all the rules. That taught me to not follow the break rules. That's right. Do what you want to do, right? And not, so what's your bread and butter in there? Like, what is the most important part, or like your favorite part of that?
Oh, breaking the rules?
No, just your whole book in general.
Or just like any of it. Well, I like to keep it all. Life is an adventure. Make it interesting. And the more interesting you make a session for people you're working with, the deeper imprint into the music, there is the joy, and you can feel it when you hear it. With that music, it's actually you can really tell when it's that there's something special there.
Cool.
Right.
Well,
Fun.
I want to thank you so much again, the legendary Sylvia Massy. Still making cool records forever. Thank you so much.